look at this. Ah, so much dirt. Or do you call it soil? Because that's what this lesson is about. It is about actually soil. Now, if you're to take one point or one lesson out of this whole course, it is that you're growing soil first, plants second. Now, just like a house, if you get the foundations wrong, the house falls over, and your plants are no different. Now, the soil is one of the most important components to having healthy plants. Whether you're growing in raised garden beds like this as such, or in pots, you're going to need good quality soil because it's through the soil in which plants gain most of their nutrients. Now, plants require light, temperature, air, moisture, and nutrients. Now, soil provides majority of those. The light obviously comes from the sun, but in terms of temperature, there's soil temperature that helps warm up the plants. You have air, so depending upon how dense the soil is, there should be able to have air within the soil. And then you've got obviously the nutrients, so plants take up their nutrients through the soil. Finally, also moisture. So not only do they take it up through their leaves, but majority of the moisture is taken up through the soil. So the soil is a really important component. The question you're going to ask is, what kind of soil do you have? What are you working with? And what is it you're wanting to achieve? What kind of soil? What does the soil look like when it looks good and it looks right? Well, the simplest, easiest way to do that is to do a ribbon test to figure out what the soil is. And in a future little video, I've got some information about how you can do that yourself. But that's all in relation to soil texture and figuring out what soil you have. So soil texture is reference to whether you have clay soil or sandy soil. But ideally when you're growing vegetables, you want a loam, which is smack bang in the middle. So at one end, you've got clay, which is really fine, really tiny little particles of soil. And that's why, particularly when you've got clayey soil, because it compacts, they're really tiny, it compacts and the water can't penetrate. And that's why you often end up with waterlogged plants. And also what happens is plants struggle to send their roots through clayey soil. At the other end of the spectrum, you've got gravel, which is really large particles of rock. And just before that, you've got sand. And in between all of those, you've got loam, which is what you're ideally wanting to achieve with your veggie garden. If you're in the inner suburbs and it was an old industrial estate, I would potentially look at creating raised garden beds so that way you can import the soil. Now, I always recommend that you use the soil that you've got on site, if you know that's preferable. That way you don't have to bring it in, okay? And also it's not as expensive, and quite often a lot of the soil that you purchase is not great anyway. So if you've got it on site, I would probably use it. Sometimes the only time that you might want to question that is if you're in an industrial area previously, and there might have been some leaching of chemicals and that sort of thing in the soil. But however, in most cases you can work the soil that you've got, and it's a matter of figuring out what kind of soil you have. And to do that, you use a simple ribbon test, which I've got the next video to explain how you can do that. But ultimately, what you're wanting to do is create a loam. And regardless whether you've got clay soil or sandy soil, you're always wanting to improve that soil, because it's through the soil that it contains all the microbes that help feed the plant, okay? So that soil is a living entity. There's hundreds of thousands of little microbes in there that helps plants take up nutrients that exist in the soil. So if you've got really good healthy soil, it's a bit, the way that I like to refer to it, it's a bit like your gut, for example. You've got all this bacteria in your gut, hopefully most of it good, then you're going to have a healthy system. And it's the same with your soil. If you can get really good healthy soil, healthy microbes in the soil, you're going to end up having healthy plants. So ideally you want to spend time working on the soil.